So just to be sure that Canadians have this straight, during the entire run-up to the election after 10 failed years of Liberal leadership, Mark Carney's entire selling point was, I am the guy who can negotiate with Donald Trump. We have tariffs coming up. We have a trade deal coming up, expiring. I worked at the Bank of Canada. I worked at the Bank of England. I'm a financial expert, a global financial expert. I can deal with the United States, who are, by the way, Canada's biggest trading partner by far. Nobody even comes close. 75% of our exports are to the United States, and over 65% of our imports are from the United States. To act as though we can throw away our trade relationship with the United States and come out alive as Canadians is simply not true. We need the United States. So the entire run up to the election, Mark Carney, the WF Davos Brookfield Asset Management stooge, told Canadians, I am the only one to negotiate with the United States. I am the one who can save us in this fraught relationship. Demonized Donald Trump, made the Republicans in the United States out to be the cause of all of Canada's problems. Not mass immigration, unprecedented immigration, not all these green initiatives that we're foolishly focusing on our economy on, not all of this woke DEI garbage. None of Canada's economic, healthcare, free speech, charter rights and freedoms issues had anything to do with the United States. It was all to do with Canada's own policy. Fast forward 7 months, Mark Carney has now been our Prime Minister for 7 months. Tariffs upped in Canada from 35% to 45%. The EU has negotiated them down from 35% to 15%. Many countries have negotiated down to 0%. Canada, one of the very few countries who continually agonizes the United States time after time after time. You see our most vocal, most visible Liberal politicians get on TV and speak negatively about the United States. We're running ads in the United States bashing Donald Trump, clear foreign interference. Canada has dealt with the United States in the worst imaginable way under Mark Carney, antagonizing anybody who's thought about psychology for 5 minutes. Any understanding of psychology knows that in order to negotiate with a guy like Trump, you have to let him know where he wins, where he can benefit from a partnership with Canada, whether that be taking advantage of our steel, our aluminum. You have to sell him a two-way win. Why is this good for the United States? The Canadian Liberal politicians, not surprisingly, these are all woke ideologues, can't rub two brain cells together, have taken the exact opposite approach and are consistently, time after time after time, agonizing Trump. So Canada, as I stated, we actually had our tariffs that aren't covered by CUSMA increased by 45%. Well, the vast majority of the free world was either able to get them down to 0 or significantly negotiated them down. Now, there are many industries in Canada that are getting hammered by these tariffs, absolutely hammered by these tariffs. I know some accountants, certain businesses are actually leaving for the States. We've had $85 billion worth of capital leave this country only since Mark Carney was elected. And this guy's supposed to be the economic genius. Since Carney's been elected, both quarters have seen negative economic GDP growth. Negative 1.6, negative 0.2%. When you have 2 straight quarters of negative GDP growth, they generally consider that to be a recession. We've had 7 straight quarters of negative GDP per capita growth, which is considered the best measure of how your average citizen is doing. And what's Mark Carney's response to the continuing struggles of Canada's economy since he was elected? And despite all of his tough talk about how Donald Trump was going to be the downfall of this country and blaming all of the issues from Justin Trudeau and Mark Carney's government on Donald Trump, when he got down to Mar-a-Lago, he absolutely kissed his ass. All of a sudden, all that tough talk disappeared incredibly quickly once he actually got in front of the man's face. But now he's out at the G20. He's asked when he is going to speak next with Donald Trump. And this man's response, I kid you not, who cares? That's his answer. We have 45% tariffs on major industries throughout Canada. Businesses are leaving at a pace never seen before. $85 billion, $85 billion with a B dollars have left this country since Mark Carney was elected. And his response to when are you going to speak with Donald Trump next is, I kid you not, it's who cares. And if there's anything that's ever going to show you just how corrupt and sinister our mainstream media is, can you imagine if it had been a conservative politician who had said that in a context where Canadians were struggling economically? Our major, the trade partner we can't survive without has implemented these massive tariffs. Can you imagine if Pierre Poilievre said, "Who cares?" to a reporter asking him when they were next speaking with Donald Trump? But CBC, CTV Global, and CBC is the absolute worst. $1.5 billion worth of taxpayer money absolutely flushed down the drain every year. But all of them are totally ignoring it. CBC, as I said, if this was a conservative leader who had said, "Who cares?" this would be non-stop. You'd never hear the end of it. Mark Carney says that I think on CBC last night, they replayed the clip once. They barely discussed it, the amount of cover these guys push. And it really unveils Carney's psychology, what he's thinking. Carney is making himself rich hand over fist. Carney is much more governing this country out of the interests of Brookfield Asset Management, the WF in Davos, than he is on the average Canadian taxpayer. If you look at, I said $85 billion have left Canada since $85 billion have left Canada since he was elected. 2 straight quarters of negative GDP growth. Stellantis leaves, Jack Daniels leaves, all these companies leaving the country. But Brookfield is up 45%. Brookfield is up 45% since Carney was elected. He's already said 42 different deals with Brookfield. He is violating the Conflict of Interest Act on a consistent basis now, getting out in front of the Canadian public. This is a clear violation of the Conflict of Interest Act, no question about it. And talking about companies like GE, Hitachi, pumping companies that he has a personal stake in, and promoting it as a public office holder. It's disgusting, and it just goes into the mindset of he's saying who cares, because these talks with Trump have very little to do with how his own individual companies will do. The American stock market is up huge, and Carney's 90, I kid you not, of the 600 companies that Carney owns, over 90% of them are located in the United States of America. This man is governing this country for his own personal enrichment and that of his liberal buddies. Look, Chrystia Freeland just left the country. She's still getting paid, I'm sure, close to a 7-figure salary to leave the country. The Liberals are literally looting this country. They are looting this country just as Justin Trudeau did. We scandal, Arrive Can App scandal, SNC Lavalin scandal. They're all cut from the same cloth. We need to keep calling it out. And you know what, Mark Carney, you're going to figure out very quickly exactly who the hell cares about this. Please like, share, subscribe, join, become a member, donate. Really appreciate everybody who likes and subscribes. Helps get the message out there hard and fast. Talk to you guys soon.